Hey everybody, I'm Two-Tone the Artist.
And I'm Mitch the Beach.
Welcome to the Hills Are Silent podcast, where we chop it up about the games of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Come on, y'all, let's get into it. What's going on, Mitch? What games have you been playing lately?
Yeah, so both you and I have been playing a little game called Helldivers. A good couch experience. We were playing it on our PS4s, and which was a good change up from sitting at the computer chair for a prolonged period of time. I definitely like my couch experiences with the games. My initial thoughts on that one, pretty good. I think we're gonna go dive into it one more time at least, pun intended. For those who have never played Helldivers, would you say it's a third person, not a side scroller, but it's more like a 3D.
Yeah, I would classify
it, to be honest with you,
as a top-down shooter, similar to a twin stick shooter, except it doesn't really play like a twin stick shooter.
That's a good point. So that's why we have you on this podcast, because I can never explain what the specific genre is.
Actually, I take that back. I think I would consider it a twin stick shooter, because I don't know, man.
I'm trying to remember how we were aiming with it.
Yeah, trying to remember how we were aiming. It felt different. I don't know. I'm used to a twin stick shooter being you have one button to move your character and you automatically shoot based on whatever direction you're playing. Like as soon as I aim to the right, my guy's automatically shooting. But I guess a twin stick shooter doesn't necessarily have to auto fire when you aim, because in Helldivers you have to hold down the aim button to move your aim around. But I don't know. It's like a hybrid twin stick shooter, but it's much deeper than that. I liked it. You said you played it on the couch. I was in bed, laying completely down. Head was being propped up by a pillow, playing like this, controller up by my face. Like I was like, this is my before bed jam right now. So yeah, we dove in. You got to play the tutorial by yourself before you can hop in a co-op match. But as soon as we were done with the tutorial, we jumped in a match together. It's kind of interesting. It's got a hub world, kind of like Destiny. I know I say that a lot, but it seems like a lot of games are gravitating towards that, where like you meet up with people in a little hub area and you decide what mission or contract you want to take, and then you're launched out into whatever that level or mission is.
I kind of wanted there to be a little more of a story to what we were about to get into, and there really wasn't much of that for the most part. It was more of us, like you said, choosing a mission on a certain planet, going into that mission and helping out more of like a cause for all these people that are playing the game online. We were generating points toward a common goal with other people playing online.
Yeah, and I'm very story driven, so those are the types of games I gravitate towards. If the gameplay is good, I'll still play it, but story is always first and foremost my motivator to keep me playing a game for the long run. And yeah, Helldivers, not much story. That really takes a backseat to the action. And with games like this, I know the term sandbox game gets tossed around a lot, but I don't think people really ever talk much about what it means to be a sandbox game. And the term that I prefer to use is toy box game instead of sandbox game, because with Helldivers, you're thrown in a level and you're just given this huge list of abilities, weapons, like outfits and stuff from the jump off. And then of course, as you grind, you unlock even more of that stuff, but they are so generous with all the different toys that you can choose from to go in and play your mission. And sometimes those games can be really cool, because sometimes I'm just like, man, just give me a bunch of cool stuff and let me just experiment it. Even if the gameplay is not super deep, let me jump in and play with all these cool guns and weapons and abilities and all that stuff. So yeah, I liked it. I think it was really easy, but also we were playing matches on a really easy difficulty.
Yeah, I have that written down in my notes here. I was like, yeah, we're playing on really easy difficult, so I'm interested to see how it is when we ramp it up to some of the harder ones.
Yeah, same here. I think that's what we're gonna do whenever we jump back in. This is okay. We got the gist of it. Let's see what it's like when we crank the difficulty way up. And there's definitely still people playing it. A couple guys joined in our game pretty much right off the bat, and that was fun. It's nice playing a 4-player co-op game when people just jump in, they're ready to have fun. Yeah, and they were way higher levels than us. And sometimes that can be bad in a co-op game because you have somebody who joins in who's like a level 1,000 when you're level 1, and they're just dominating and running circles around the map, and you're just struggling to keep up because you've never even played the game before. But These guys were really cool. They went through the levels at the same pace as us, and it felt like a team.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because they were kind of acting like, well, they were great. They knew exactly what to do, but they were acting like it was the hardest difficulty. They were throwing like every mech they could throw out, every bomb they could chuck, and there's like 3 enemies on the screen.
Yeah, that's true. And kudos to them for joining in on an easy game, with some newbies like us. So Helldivers, I finally got around to playing it. So I just recently picked it up on PS4. Mitch, I know after I told you about it, you're like, man, I'll grab a copy too, because it was dirt cheap. I think we paid like $9-10 at GameStop for a PlayStation 4 copy. Much. So yeah, it's a nice, cheap, fun co-op game. If that's what you're looking for, I would recommend it. I also own it on PlayStation Vita and PlayStation 3. So I technically have 3 copies of this game, but I'm just now playing it, and I'm playing it on PS4.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm glad you suggested that, because we had some other games that we were trying to finish, but I was glad you still suggested it, because it was a good change up from us chilling at the computer chair, like you said. You got to lay back in bed and play, and I was laid out on the couch, and it was, I was using a crappy mic, but hey, it didn't matter. It was a good time.
Yep. All right, man. Well, I have not been playing much outside of that. Helldivers has really been it for me. Have you been playing anything else?
I have. I played one where I talked to you about it off stream a little bit beforehand because I was excited for it to come to Game Pass. But it's a game called Inkulinati, and I think it's a really cool name, first off, and I feel like it's very interesting. The title's very interesting, but the game is also incredibly bizarre and in my alley.
Before we talk about anything beyond the name, in Inkulinati, the emphasis is on the word ink in that.
Yes.
Am I correct with that assumption?
You would be correct. Yes, ink is a very major part of that game.
Okay.
So, before I go too far into the game, it's developed by Yaza Games, which is a small Portland studio. I want to give them a shout out. They have I looked at their site, I think 10 people are in the whole studio. And this is their first game, from my understanding. So, and they label it's an ink-based, as you said, an ink-based strategy game. And it's actually inspired by real-life medieval marginalia, which I thought was interesting. They took some medieval scripture stuff and threw it in their game. I mean, as far as the gameplay is concerned, I'm a big fan of strategy games. A lot of strategy games I play. Obviously, I've talked about my love for card games, but the strategy in this one is pretty cool. Essentially, you're a master of living ink, is what they call it, and your goal is to protect your spire, who's the main person on the field. And you, as the controller, or the person controlling, the pen and creating all the characters, there's both, so far from what I played, there's both rabbits and there's dogs. And you write them out, and you draw them out. And it's cool because there's like a little hand that comes in directly and starts drawing out all the characters. And they're basically your pawns, or your units that you use to defend your main person, your scripture, your scribe. And your goal is to use these, either dogs or rabbits, and take out the other scribe. And to do that, it's turn-based. So you're going back and forth. You're moving your rabbits or your dogs back and forth. You're drawing new ones if you have enough ink to do so. So you can load your field with units. And there's different types of units. There's some holding a sword, some that have a bow, some that have a spear. All with the goal of trying to take out the other scribe before yours gets taken out. And it's kind of funny. They all have their own like moves depending on what type of unit it is. And like the rabbits have like a special move where they literally just fart on somebody.
I just saw that in a trailer. I was like, he better talk about the farting.
Yeah, the rabbit farts on somebody and it lowers their like accuracy or something. It like stuns them.
That would lower anybody's accuracy.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought there's some of the moves are pretty interesting, and I think it's cool because like they show the hand going in and drawing the rabbits and whatnot, and the hand itself is actually part of the game. So you can use the hand as almost like an attack. So your hand can move people or push them. So you can push stuff off the edge and kill them, but you can also point your finger at the unit and do damage to them. So while the units all have their own like turns that they take, the hand also has a turn that they take. So it's really interesting, really unique. I'm definitely going to play more of it. It reminds me a lot of, it's like a mix of Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon. So Slay the Spire, where you like follow a path, like the story mode has you following a path that ultimately leads to a boss fight. Mm-hmm. But along the way, you run into different story elements, different battles with random units until you get to a boss battle. And if you die, or if you lose all your ink, you have to start all the way over at the beginning. And then the Darkest Dungeon feel is kind of like, the side-scrolling units, turn-based combat. Each unit has their own specific type of moves. So it's definitely up my alley because I'm a big fan of Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon. But I've had a lot of fun so far, and I'm really looking forward to continuing playing it. It's in the preview program of the Xbox Game Pass or the Xbox Store or whatnot. So it looks like they're going to add a lot more updates to the future. But so far, so good. I'm really enjoying it.
Cool. Well, yeah, it looks like a unique game. I've never seen anything like that before.
Neither had I. It caught my eye initially because I'm a sucker for good art style. So and it definitely caught my eye right away. I had to give it a try.
All right.
That's all that I've been playing besides my Chained Echoes that I'm loving that game and I'm sinking those hours in. So I may provide another update once I get farther there.
Okay, cool. Looking forward to that. So with Inkulinati, and you're playing it on computer, is it only on computer or is it on consoles too?
I'm actually playing on my Xbox. So
okay.
It's on Game Pass, but you can play it on your PC or you can play it on Xbox.
Okay. It does not strike me as a game that you would be able to play with a controller. But I guess you can then if it's on console.
I was playing with controller, and honestly, it wasn't that bad. I learned the controls pretty quick. It wasn't with turn-based combat. There's not like too much. I can take my time too. I'm not like racing against anything, so that helps. But I feel like it's probably more suited for a mouse and keyboard. I think it would be maybe a little better experience. A lot of strategy games are in that aspect. I mean, it's easier to point and click and move the keyboard than it is to figure around with buttons.
Yeah. Well, speaking of controllers, Sony just dropped their DualSense? Yeah, DualSense Edge controller, which is their first attempt at what's considered an elite controller or a pro controller. I know Xbox has their pro controller, and then some third-party controller manufacturers have also released what are considered pro controllers. I have tried the original Xbox Elite controller. I think they're on the second iteration now. I think they've improved on it since their first release. That was for Xbox One. And now they got the second version that's for Xbox Series X. Have not tried the DualSense Edge. Have you gotten your hands on any pro controllers? Have you tried those out at all?
I have friends who have gotten I know the Xbox ones use, and they always try to like they vouch for them. They say that they're really comfortable controllers. And honestly, I should really bite the bullet at some point and do it because while I love like the base Xbox One controller, I think it's very comfortable. I feel like as far as like the wear and tear on it, as much as I play, I end up like going through a controller at least once a year. Like I usually want to switch it out because maybe like the joystick isn't functioning as good as it used to, or the buttons are stuck. Maybe I spilled some coffee on it. I don't know, but I feel like I should at some point bite the bullet and get one of these series controllers because I know there's a lot of customization you can do with those as far as like the triggers and even like the plates on I want to say the back of it as far as like how it feels like when on the grips on the back. So I've not bought either for PlayStation or Xbox, but I think at some point I'd like to. Have you gotten your hands on one?
Yeah, so when I played with the original Xbox Elite controller, I was hanging out with some buddies. One of them brought over their Xbox One and they had the Elite controller. I was very curious to try it out and it was cool. His was a little beat up, so he definitely used it a lot, but I couldn't see myself purchasing that one. I haven't tried the second generation, but I couldn't see myself purchasing that one. My bad. For the price that they were selling it for, I was like, this is cool. It's got a few extra bells and whistles, but not enough to literally be paying 4 times what I would pay for just a standard Xbox controller, which to me is an amazing controller as is. Like I'm so satisfied with just the base Xbox controller that like it's just I don't know. I don't think I need all those extra stuff, especially not if I'm going to be paying 3 to 4 times the price for one controller. Like $200 for a controller is a little outrageous to me, especially when I could spend $200, especially when you can get an Xbox Series X for like $200 with a controller.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know a lot of times, especially during the holidays, these past holidays, I got a new controller just because like I think Target and some other retailers were like they were on sale for like $35.
Yeah, exactly. So you're getting a dang good controller for $30. So it's kind of hard to justify spending $200 on something that's just a little better. And I'm sure there's dedicated people out there that are like, man, I gotta have the best of the best. But one big thing about these controllers is the back buttons, the back pedals, which, I mean, come on. Those are great. Those are great, especially if you're playing a first-person shooter where you do not want to take your thumb off of the thumbstick because you're shooting, you're fighting another guy, you're aiming. It's really risky to let go, lose control of your aim, to hit the jump button or hit the duck button or the whatever slide button, whatever you're trying to do. But I gotta say, that is a great advancement in controllers, but why is that being tiered off to only being these Elite controllers? Why don't they just bring that to your standard controllers? I mean, is it...
It can't be that much more labor cost or I guess production cost to add that in.
Yeah,
well,
and
maybe I don't know a lot, but I feel like it could be that much.
Yeah, and you can buy just attachments that just give you those pedals even on a standard controller. PlayStation, Sony released an attachment for the PS4 controllers that gives you back buttons. And I think when it was released, it was like $30 or $40, and they're programmable. It had a cool little screen on the back. You'd flip the controller over, plug it in, and then you could adjust what buttons were mapped to those. So I would and I was at GameStop, and apparently nobody was buying these things because they were on clearance for $10.
Wow.
So I was like, sure, why not? What do I have to lose? If I like it, I like it. If I don't, oh well, I only spent $10. And the funny thing is when I was going up to the checkout counter to buy one, a guy was in line in front of me returning one.
Oh.
And he was like, yeah, I just never really used it. And So I'm just like, okay, all right. I still bought it though.
He must have got it for a little more than $10. I don't know if I'm going to go to GameStop just to return something I got for $10.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah,
I think those things could be beneficial though, because I play Final Fantasy 14 online. I play on PC, but you can play Final Fantasy 14, which is an MMO RPG, on PlayStation 4, which I have no idea how people play a full-out MMO with a controller. There's so many, I have so many keybinds for when I play MMOs. So like something like that, buying that will give you a couple extra triggers to work with, so you're not having to bind so many things to different, to different combinations of buttons.
Yeah, and there's more advanced ones you can get. The one that Sony released was very simple. It just added one pedal on each side. But I know a lot of them add 4 pedals on the back, and a lot of them you can go in and really program to do like button combinations and stuff, just like you were talking about. And unfortunately, a lot of those are used for cheating in games. People will bind like these incredible button combinations and other weird hacks they can do with these to just give them a really big competitive edge. Now, of course, you're not going to get that in an officially released Sony or Microsoft controller, because they don't want to sell the tools to let you cheat in the games.
That brings me back to my Halo 2 days again, because a big thing in Halo 2 multiplayer was BXRing and BXBing.
What are those?
So a BXR would be, if you use the combination of all 3 of those so quickly, you could kill somebody instantly. So a B is a beatdown, an X is a reload, and then an R is a shot. So for the BXR, and people would do this in like competitive play too, but they wouldn't cheat to do it. They were just quick. If you did them in succession as quick as possible, it would be a quick, like almost one step beat down, shot in the head, dead. And then BXB, same thing, was a beatdown, like a double beatdown that was like really quick. So from what I remember, and I don't know if it had to do with controllers or not, maybe there was some functionality with it on original Xbox controllers back in the day, but I know people would have the same thing. There was like one button they could program just to hit a BXR or a BXB.
Yeah, that's a precursor to all of these controllers that have these paddles on the back. People would literally hardware mod their controllers and add an extra button on them. They'd cut a hole out, do some crazy thing, and then they'd have these little extra trigger buttons on their controllers. I've seen that before.
Yeah, it definitely reminds me of that, because I remember my friends and I getting pissed because we weren't good enough to do it, because it really took skill you didn't like build something into the controller to do it. Actually, doing it manually took a lot of skill. So I'm like, we can't do that crap. So we just accuse everybody of cheating.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the Xbox Elite Series 2 controllers right now, and so apparently they now sell 2 versions. They've got the regular Elite Wireless Controller Series 2. Well, that's a mouthful. And then they've got the Elite Wireless Controller Series 2 Core, which is the cheaper version. And there's about a $40 price difference. At the time of this episode, the main one is usually $180, but it's on sale for $170. And the Core one is...
What a deal.
Yeah, what a deal. The Core one is $130. The difference being... It looks like that it doesn't come with a carrying case, which that's fine by me. I probably wouldn't even use that. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't come with all the different button swap outs. So you're not going to have all the different, because you can change the buttons on the back, change the length of them, I guess, and change the D-pad and stuff like that. So you're not going to get those extra buttons. I'm assuming you'd probably have to buy those separately over time.
I think we need to have a whole separate podcast episode about the Xbox naming convention, because I'm just not I'm not happy with the way they've named everything that they've done past Xbox 360.
Yeah.
They've confused everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a mouthful of the different types of controllers, but the differences are, I feel like I would, if I were to buy one, I would go for the smaller tier than the cheaper tier than the other one.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if the differences bother me that much.
Me neither. Like, really, how often are you going to be taking your controller apart to change out the D-pad or something? Like,
No, I feel like I'm too lazy for that.
yeah. Which leads into my next point about these controllers. Sometimes it can be customization overkill. Like, lots of times I just want something pre-configured, ready to go right out of the box. Like, hand me a controller and let me play. I don't want to sit there and spend half my afternoon meticulously dialing in sensitivity settings for my triggers, for my thumbsticks, for all this crazy stuff. Like, you could waste a whole day just doing that and never actually even play a game. So it's kind of like, at what point, it's great to have options, but sometimes things are just over engineered and there's just too much customizability or options. What is your take on that? Are you all for just infinite customization options, or are you like me where you just prefer like a turnkey option, like just right out the box, just plug it in and it works?
Yeah, that's what I prefer too. I like just taking the controller out the box, and then I'm ready to play the game. I don't need to do all this other stuff just so I can ultimately play a game that I could have done 20 minutes ago if I just got the cheaper controller.
Yeah. Because really the focus is the game, not the tools to play it. So I think the greatest controller is the one you don't know that's there, the one you don't even realize it exists. It's just playing the game is second nature. I know I'm totally quoting somebody else. I don't remember who originally said that. But yeah, for me, it's just...
Great quote.
Yeah, it was well put. That's why I'm repeating it. It's just best to have something intuitive, quick, dive right in, get into it. Even with games themselves, especially PC games, like sometimes you go into the menus, and again, it's great to have options, but sometimes it's just insane. I remember the first time I loaded up Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the reboot, not the original one, the more recent one, I think came out like 2018 or 2019 or something. The amount of customization in that game is just insane. Just how much you can dial it down to your exact play style. And I'm not totally bashing this. It is great to have options, and some people like to use that stuff. But when I first jumped in that game, I had sunk like an hour and a half, and I'm like, I haven't even made it out of the options menu yet. I haven't even started a damn game. I just want to shoot something.
Yeah, especially with a lot of us, we're getting older. We don't have as much time to game as we used to. Except me, I don't do anything in my life but game. But I have no responsibilities. But a lot of people our age don't have a lot of time to game. They have families, they have kids, they have jobs, they have everything. We're like, we just want to get on the game when we have time and play it right away.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I only have an hour and a half to game today, and I don't want to spend it all in the options menu.
Exactly.
Which is another reason why I like that Helldivers game, because that was a quick pick up and play game where you could just jump right in and get right to it.
Yeah, especially once you get out of the tutorial. Like when we load it up again the next time, we'll literally just load up a mission and we're in, and 10 seconds. And
we were cranking through missions. Like, the missions only last like 5 or 7 minutes, so you can just jump in, get a quick fix, knock out a couple missions, and then jump off.
There. Talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah. So that is a cool game. We definitely got to jump back in that one again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the next thing I wanted to cover, and this is an interesting topic. So I'm looking through my game collection on Steam, on the shelf. I'm looking through all the covers of them, and it's just guy with a gun, guy with a gun, guy with a gun, guy with a sword, guy with a gun, guy with a gun. And I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, 90% of modern games, you're a human character. But being an older gamer, I distinctly recall there being plenty of games where you were not a human. You were not playing as a human. So I don't know what happened to that. When did that shift happen? Because tons of original Nintendo games, Super Nintendo games, PlayStation, Nintendo 64, PS2 games, GameCube games, just all these different games where you play as either animals or whatever it is. Plus, that was like the age of the mascots. You had Sonic the Hedgehog, Crash Bandicoot, and all kinds of other stuff. Yeah, Donkey Kong. Yes, exactly. You're not a donkey in that, but
no,
but you are an animal.
You're not human.
Yeah. So what happened to all the non-human games? Have gamers spoken and we just all like to play as humans, or what is it?
Yeah, because you really only see it around for the most part now because of Nintendo, but Nintendo has just carried their franchises that they started with when non-human characters were popular and just brought them with them, years and years. They just kept the property. It's not like they created a new new character or anything. These are all ones that we've known for years back in the 80s, 90s. So like, yeah, I don't know what happened, and you and I were trying to come up with other characters that were more modern that in today's age, and we couldn't come up with many.
Yeah, it was hard. We tried to come up with a list of some of the best games where you're not playing as a human, and everything we came up with were older games. One that comes to mind for me is Bubble Bobble. And have you ever played this game, Mitch?
I've not played it, but when I saw it, like I know what it is. Like I instantly knew and recognized it, but never really played it.
Okay, so Bubble Bobble is, I believe, both an arcade game and a game that released on the original Nintendo Entertainment System. That's what I played it on, but I think it was also released in arcade. And it's a fun kind of platformer. I guess I just call it a platformer. But instead of being a side-scrolling platformer, like you'd think of like the old Marios where you go from one side of the screen to the other, instead you're just on one static screen. And you clear the level by destroying all the enemies in that one screen. And then you move on to the next level, and it's a different screen that might have different platforms or in slightly different positions that you can jump on, and it has different enemies. So you play as a dragon. It's a co-op game too. I used to love playing this game co-op. But yeah, you play as a dragon or two dragons if you're playing co-op, and for some reason these dragons can blow bubbles, and that's what you encase the enemies in, and then you jump on them when they're in the bubble, and you can kill them. So you can only kill an enemy if you first trap them in a bubble. And then you can collect fruit and other stuff that's dropped by the enemies to earn points. Very simple game, but gets very challenging the more the levels progress. So it's a great game, and it was the first one that popped in my mind. I'm like, what's a great game where you're not a human? Now, I can theorize that one of the reasons a lot of games had non-human characters is, one, the graphic capabilities of back then. It's much easier it can be easier to render sprites as little creatures as opposed to full humans with appendages. Same thing with early PlayStation 1 games and N64 games. It's hard to make a realistic looking human on that, so why not make something like some type of animal or something? So I don't know. That's just a theory that maybe graphics restrictions had something to do with it, with why there were more non-human characters in older games. And also, games used to be considered something more for kids and more geared towards kids.
I was just about to say that. They were really just for kids. That's the main demographic. Games didn't become mainstream and cool until later on. So it was like adults shouldn't be playing video games at that point, right?
Yeah, so I guess they're just trying to cater to kids by having these more cartoony animal characters like you would see on a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
And then there's the whole mascot situation where I guess it's more memorable to have a mascot that's an animal. It's more distinct than to have a mascot that's a human. So another great game that came to mind is Crash Bandicoot, which is still around.
Yes.
not only was the first 3 games remade for modern consoles, but also they came out with another sequel too.
Before you dive in too much, I want to show. I think it speaks to the time as well where Naughty Dog started and where they are now. Naughty Dog went from Crash Bandicoot, and now their main titles are Uncharted, where your
And The
main
Last of Us,
character
too.
is a human, is Nathan Drake.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting as we've aged, there, as time has gone by, they've gone from a cartoonish character to Crash Bandicoot to a human and Nathan Drake.
Yeah, and I recall in Uncharted 4, Nathan Drake sits down with his girlfriend in their living room and he picks up a PlayStation 1 controller, and you can actually play through Crash Bandicoot in that scene, which was so cool. I mean, that was definitely a nod to their past. When I got to that part, I was like, "What? We're playing a game within a game." Mine was blown.
Game Inception.
Yeah, for real.
Definitely brought things full circle, though. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Man, Crash Bandicoot was great. I've gone back recently and tried to play the first one again, and it's a hard game. I forgot how difficult that was.
Yeah, I own that remaster or that remake trilogy, and I've gone back and tried to play it too, and it is difficult, man.
Yeah.
They've really made games easier for people nowadays too, as compared to back then.
Yeah.
While they may have had cartoonish characters, they did not take it easy on the kids playing the games.
Yeah, exactly, because even as an adult, I can barely play that game. But it goes to your point earlier, though. Crash Bandicoot is an old franchise. Oops, sorry, I got the volume on over here. It's an old franchise, and it's not like a fresh new IP or new character. So there are a lot of games, or are some games coming out that still have non-human characters, but again, to your point, they're just bringing forward old franchises.
Right.
Anyway, I got one more to cover before I ask you what's some of your favorite games playing as a non-human.
Yeah.
And that is Kirby. From Kirby's Adventure,
classic.
Or any of the Kirby games.
We don't really know what exactly Kirby is, but he is not a human.
Yeah, he's definitely not human, but he's not an animal. He's like a chewed up piece of bubble gum you pulled off your shoe, and that's your hero. But yeah, I have fond memories of playing Kirby on the NES, where you could suck in enemies and steal their powers. I never played any of the more modern Kirbys. Have you?
No, I remember going over to your place though and playing it on one of your systems because I was a big fan of the Kirby games, and the same thing. I love being able to suck them up and then get the power that they had, and my love for that came over to Super Smash Brothers when you could play as Kirby in Super Smash and do the same exact thing. So.
Oh yeah, man! The original Super Smash Bros. Kirby was my character. Wait, he was in the original one, right? Or am I thinking of Melee? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was in the original, and but again, going back to what we were talking about with Crash Bandicoot, Kirby is still very relevant today. There was kind of a lull. There was kind of a time period where he was not getting featured in his own games anymore, but lately they've released a lot of Kirby IPs, or a lot of Kirby games, to be honest. There's I think one of the newest ones is Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, which is more of, I think, a Mario Odyssey style Kirby game, which I've heard is pretty darn good. And I want to say they're remastering some of the older Kirby games too.
Really?
Either that, or they're doing more of a side-scrolling Kirby game again, like they had done. That could be a new game, but
this has really got me wanting to play some Kirby. Like, I want to check out the newer ones. I've heard they're super easy. Well, I'll want to play the ones on 3DS. I don't know what other platforms they've been released on. Is there like some Switch Kirbys?
Was it GameCube where you had the one where it was like almost a racing game where you raced on the stars?
Yes, yeah. I never played that, but I've seen that one.
I didn't either, but I remember the cover vividly for some reason.
Yeah, I need a jam on some Kirby.
Yeah, there's some other ones on the Nintendo Wii, I think, and the Wii U has one. So I guess they have been giving us Kirby games throughout time, but yeah, I think more people need to play them because they're fun.
Yeah. It's just such a weird concept that you would not think you wouldn't think anybody would come up with that, and you would not think it would take off and still be around to this day.
Yeah, I don't know who pitched. I want to know who pitched that original concept of just a pink blob being a hero, and I mean, it's very Nintendo just to be like, yeah, let's roll with it.
Yeah. Again, it could have came down to the graphics. It could have been like, it's easy to make a pink blob on a Nintendo. Let's go with it.
Sure.
All right. Well, that's all my choices for some of the greatest games that I've played in the past where you're not a human. What about you? Any old games? Any modern games?
Yeah, I wanted to switch it up and do more of a modern take on it because I really was trying to find one in more modern times where the main character was an animal, and I think a really good example because it's an interesting example. It's a game called Night in the Woods, and while you play as a non-human character, they act like humans and they deal with real life human situations. So it's a side-scrolling, narrative-heavy adventure game where the main character is a cat, and this cat is a college dropout who's returning to his hometown. And you know, when you return to your hometown after college or after a long time away, things aren't as what they used to be. So his hometown has changed, and basically the story revolves around him going and reconnecting with all his hometown friends who kind of originally are very sad because they thought he abandoned them by going to college in the first place. But then turns into a larger narrative of them trying to figure out what the title says, what the heck is going on in the woods. So the art style is incredibly kind of borderline creepy in some ways. And it's which obviously caught my eye, but the story is fantastic. The writing is great. But I think it's funny that while they made the main character a cat, they all function like normal humans. So I don't know what that says, but I think it's just funny that the only example I could come up with of a really good game that I've played, while it is a cat, they do deal with real life human situations of dropping out of college or dealing with, misconnections of friends or losing a loved one or something like that.
Wow, yeah, these are some very serious themes. It's interesting that the developers chose to tell this story through animals as characters.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos for finding a modern game that's a new IP. It's not an old franchise brought forward where you're a non-human character.
I had to figure out one, and yeah, I did finish that one and enjoyed it, and so I had to give that one a nod because it's pretty critically acclaimed. I want to say it's got a lot of good reviews.
Yeah, I've heard it's good. I have heard of it. First of all, how long did it take you to beat it?
Pretty short, I think. I don't think it took me very long. I want to say 8 to 10 hours.
Okay.
It's ballpark.
Yeah,
Could be less.
Yeah. I have been intrigued by this game, and I had heard it talks about some real serious topics and like adult themes. Yeah, what a curious game.
It's another one of those good bedtime games where you just kind of kick back if you just want to, play something chill. I mean, there's not really a lot of. It is narrative heavy, like I said. It is just a lot of side scrolling and going to different areas. But I don't know. Yeah, I think the overall story and a lot of the side stuff when you can just talk to random people and hear what they have to say is kind of cool.
Is there any combat in it, or is it strictly a puzzle game or adventure game?
Strictly a puzzle game. So there are some light puzzles in there where you're having to navigate through areas or do certain things to get to where you need to go. But yeah, no combat.
This game sounds pretty cool. I want to check this one out. And I find it interesting that, on Steam they have tags for games to like explain what they are or help you search for categories. The first tag on this game is story rich. I did not know that was a Steam tag. I might have to check out that category.
But I'll say it definitely explains it well, though. It is very story rich.
Okay. What did you play it on? Did you play it on PC?
No, I played on my Xbox. I couched it up on my Xbox.
Okay, nice.
It was on Game Pass for a time. I don't think it is now, but it was.
I should have played it while I was on there.
I don't even know how I got into it to play it. I think I just heard it was a really good game and the art style got me, and I figured I probably played a JRPG beforehand and needed something to to play that was a little lighter.
Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah, I totally forgot about that game. It was on my radar to try out, so another one I want to dive into. Good stuff, man. So we're already past the 45-minute mark. Mitch, you got anything else you want to cover, or do you want to wrap up the episode?
I think we're good to wrap it up if you're thinking so. We can always. I know we have one more topic, but we can always go into that in the next one.
Yeah, y'all just have to wait and see what we're going to talk about next on the next episode.
What a cliffhanger.
Yeah, we'll be back. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Thanks even more if you made it all the way to the end of the episode. We really appreciate it. You can find all our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. We got the social media stuff. Mitch, you want to let them know what that is?
Absolutely. You can follow us on our Twitter at The Hills Are Silent, our Instagram, which is Instagram.com/Hills Are Silent. As Mike said, our YouTube is at The Hills Are Silent, and we have a TikTok, and we're looking to post more on there, and that is at The Hills Are Silent Podcast. We'll catch you on the next episode.